Where's the rationale? What the heck is going on? And what are Democrats trying to do to our country? I want to know the answer to these questions. My Republican colleagues want to know the answers. And I believe America wants to know the answer to these questions. As we speak, countless Americans and our allies remain stranded in Afghanistan by President Biden and are at the mercy of the Taliban and ISIS-K. Thousands of refugees are heading to America. What are the plans for resettlement? Have they even been properly vetted? The president and this Democrat majority continue ignoring the humanitarian, environmental, and national security crisis at our southern border. Millions of Americans are without power and other basic necessities and are beginning the long road to rebuilding their lives following the devastation of Hurricane Ida and the massive flooding that resulted from it. Deadly wildfires have ravaged nearly 3 million acres of the western United States, destroying and threatening numerous homes, businesses, and other critical infrastructure, while drought also ravages much of the West. Where's the rationale? At any other time, any one of these would be a crisis of national proportions, the kind of national priority that requires Congress to put partisanship aside and come together for the good of the nation. Unfortunately, the exact opposite is true. We're seeing this Democrat majority dig in their heels and refuse to work across the aisle, instead choosing to prioritize partisan slush funds and payouts to special interest groups. A myriad of crises facing America remain unresolved. And in the meantime, we find ourselves here today, not actually here, but remotely through Zoom, to debate a climate change bill that arguably will do nothing to mitigate carbon in the global atmosphere, which at the end of the day is the total premise of the climate debate. It's easily arguable that these misguided policies will actually increase global carbon in the atmosphere. The Natural Resources Committee Democrats' plans for budget reconciliation are at best a package of partisan government overreach, the likes of which this committee rarely sees. At worst, their bill is a mean to hamstring the economy, cripple domestic energy production, and make the U.S. dependent on foreign adversaries. Committee Republicans stand united in strong opposition to this package. Their bill's staggering $31.7 billion price tag, still less than 1% of the Democrat majority's total $3.5 trillion spending target, dwarfs the budgets of 27 U.S. states. Their deficit spending proposals saddle future generations with insurmountable debt in order to give Nancy Pelosi things like a $200 million earmark. On top of spending all these taxpayer dollars, the majority has conveniently left out increasing funding for the Inspector General oversight of the spending. I ask again, where is the rationale? It spends more than $3.5 billion to resurrect a nearly 100-year-old Make Work program first implemented by FDR, creating a new bureaucracy to compete against American businesses at a time when help wanted signs remain in the windows of thousands of private businesses nationwide. Where is the rationale? Meanwhile, the bill makes zero new investments in new water storage, failing to address and therefore further exacerbating the Western drought crisis. Where is the rationale? Their proposal attacks safe and reliable American energy production, spends millions to kill domestic American natural resource jobs at home, imposes new taxes and fees on working families, and makes our nation more reliant than ever on foreign adversaries for critical minerals and energy resources that we could be producing more cleanly, cheaply, and effectively right here at home while growing our economy with high-paying jobs, many of those jobs in rural areas. Where is the rationale? This bill has $350 million to close down a copper mine that could produce 25% of the U.S. demands for copper over the next 50 years. While the majority talks about a green economy and an electrified economy, where's the rationale of shutting down a copper mine that's already ready to be in production. Sadly, I could go on and on with the list of issues this legislation fails to address. Earlier this week, I and many of my colleagues called on Chairman Grijalva to postpone this markup, to end the partisan charade and focus on the people's business. Unfortunately, our pleas have fallen on deaf ears. It is therefore unfortunate but necessary that I have to offer this motion to postpone today's markup so that this committee can refocus its priorities on the American people's priorities instead of the pet projects of Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, and others. I ask again, and I hope my colleagues can explain, where's the rationale? Mr. Chair, under Clause 4, Rule 16, I move that the consideration of this legislation be postponed until September 14th, 2021.
Gentlemen will hold for a moment. The gentleman would please hold for a second, Mr. Westerman.